Emily Guy Birken and Joel Saul-Sehy. Welcome to Jewish Money Matters. It's so exciting to have you on the show. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Great. Glad to be here.
It must be my lucky day. I mean, I'm like so selfish. I do this for my audience, but I get to hang out with you guys and learn from you. This is like, I'm feeling totally selfish.
No, you can. We get to hang out with you. The key is we get to hang out with you. That's the better thing.
Thank you. Thank you. So I bragged about you in the introduction, and you guys have had so many years of personal finance experience under your belt. And now you've come out with this incredibly fun new book, Stacked, your super serious guide to modern money management. I bet you it's anything but super serious. Tell us, Emily and Joe, why this book and why now? What hadn't been said that you both felt needed to be said already, or perhaps it needed to be said in a different way?
But the project definitely started with me and with my podcast, Stacking Benjamins. We've been for a decade interviewing authors for 10 years. And the thing that has always been frustrating, as you know, is creators always say, well, isn't this field saturated? Aren't there too many people? And the answer is no. We need more. We need more people that are different voices, that are bringing out unique points of view. And I read this statistic in this piece by a group called Nonfiction. Mm-hmm. It's a wonderful piece called The Secret Financial Lives of Americans, and goes over some pretty troubling statistics. But one is that over 150 million people in America report that they've cried about their money. 150 million. And you'd think, by the way, that that's people that are living, paycheck to paycheck, like I was back in the early 90s, that it's people struggling on a daily basis. And while that's true, nearly half of people that earn over $250,000 a year or more also report that they cry about their money. Mm-hmm. So we're clearly still leaving people behind. I think we need to have some very important conversations, but I feel like the way to get there. I've interviewed a lot of great authors with some really important books. Our mutual friend, Farnoosh Torabi, is one person who's written some fantastic books. Yes. But lightening it up, I feel like, is a way that I don't see enough people being reached. So I was at a great bookstore in Portland, Oregon called Powell's. Mm-hmm. It's a wonderful place. It's like a block long. It's this great place to get lost. And I am wandering around and I'm getting all of these great creative ideas, and not even from financial books, just from, these synapses firing depending on where I was at. And I made it to the kids section, which Emily knows is totally me. And I saw this book called The Hardy Boys Detective Manual, which when I was in 4th grade, I carried around this Hardy Boys book all the time, my brother and I, and it was written with the help, by the way, of a real live former detective, an FBI agent. And so this book was legit, but it was so campy. I mean, my brother and I, we'd go out on a rainy day and we'd look at my dad's tire tracks as he left for work. My mom would touch a door handle and we're over there with the tape, getting mom's fingerprints, So, and I just thought, if there were a book that were a little bit campy, but presented things in that kind of fun way, but was for adults about money, that would be good. So that was the germ. I flew back. I was living in Detroit at the time. I flew back to Detroit, and my mom had actually left a bunch of stuff on the kitchen table for us that had been in her attic. I was turning 50 years old, by the way, and mom's finally trusting me with this stuff from the attic. And one of the things was the Cub Scout Wolf Guide was in this box. And I wasn't in Scouts for a long time, but what's cool is, we all talk all the time about gamification. Yes. And about if you turn this into a game, it makes it so much easier and more fun. And Cub Scouts and Girl Scouts got that so great. They did it so well, way before all these finance apps that are doing it now. They told you succinctly what you needed to do to get a badge. It's not a chapter, it's a badge. Mm-hmm. They told you succinctly what you need to do. They told you what tools you'd need. At the bottom, you had to check some boxes to show that you did stuff, because it's not about what you know, it's about what you do. And then there was a place for your mom to sign it so you get a badge. And I thought, how cool would that be? And that was how Stacked was born. So it is a guide, and it's obviously very super serious. It starts off with the fundamentals of basic personal finance, how to get your act together, where to begin, how to get a budget together. What about your credit, getting out of debt, and then building a stack of Benjamins, the basics of investing, and then protecting your Benjamins. How do we protect all the stuff we have? Insurance companies want you to talk about insurance. I'm not a fan of talking about insurance. I'm a fan of talking risk management, because sometimes it's insurance, and as you know, sometimes it's not. And then the latter piece of the book is much more for money nerds, because it's how to build stacks on top of your stacks of Benjamins. So.
I love this. And I think it's so needed. So often we talk about the mindset piece. You both know this, right? Like, evidently we sort of all know what to do, or at least we know that whatever we don't know, we should ask. And yet we don't ask the questions, right? And we have limiting beliefs and money blocks and all sort of garbage in our mind that holds us back from taking the action. I love the sound of this, because sometimes what we really need, I mean, you can do all the mindset work, but sometimes just a little fun and like making it a little lighter and having like that incentive to get us moving, because you can't really change the mindset unless you're taking the action. Like, they go hand in hand, and sometimes we forget that piece.
That's one of the reasons why I was really drawn to this project when Joe pitched it to me. He likes to say, like, he thought I was going to hang up on him.
I was sure she was going to hang up.
But I was all in from the beginning, and partially because, as we were talking before we started recording, it meant I had an opportunity to be creative and funny in a way that I don't often get when writing about money, because often my clients, they just the facts, get it straight. I try to be reassuring and gentle in my tone, but I don't often get a chance to be funny. And I had written several books prior to Stacked. The one right before Stacked that I wrote was called End Financial Stress Now. And that was a labor of love. It was a book I had been thinking about for like 10 years when I finally got a chance to write it. And it was very much about helping people overcome those limiting mindsets and helping people recognize the way that they are causing, I don't want to say causing themselves, because that sounds blaming, but there's a lot of stress that they're holding on to about money that is unnecessary, and then they can let go of. And so I had a friend who she had bought my books, to support me, but she told me privately, I'm nervous, I'm scared to read End Financial Stress Now. And I was like, oh my goodness, why? Because my entire reason for writing it was to help people feel better. And she's like, I'm afraid it's going to tell me I'm doing things wrong. I'm afraid what it's going to mean about money. And that made me realize, like, even if you're coming at things from this place of reassurance and no shame, no blame, you're still going to have people who are like, nervous about picking up a book about money because their inner monologue is telling them they're bad with money, or that it's just going to reinforce that they've made mistakes. And so with Joe offering me this opportunity to write a book that is not only going to provide the necessary information, but do it in a way that is fun and reassuring and lighthearted and shares our own mistakes, so that we're not sitting like we're up on high on the mountain saying like we've done it all perfectly, is going to catch a lot more people who would otherwise never pick up a book about money.
I love it. And it reminds me, we're three Jewish individuals here sitting in this virtual room of ours, but it really reminds me of those stories in the Talmud where you hear about the great sages opening their lectures with jokes, because, and the intent was to open the minds of the students, right? It's so important. I love all that. Now, Joe mentioned the fundamentals. So before I do want to get to all of our failures, because I have my share of them, so that everybody in the audience knows that we're right there with you people. We're not preaching, we're trying to all help each other and grow. But before that, I want to talk about fundamentals, guys, because, there's all the fundamentals of budgeting and the spending less than what you make, pay yourself first, don't get into credit card debt, max out your retirement contributions, all that stuff, right? My question to you guys is, from your experience, are there any of these that are quote unquote outdated, or that there's a more modern approach to these fundamentals? Like, what are we throwing out the window, if anything? What are we keeping? What are we refreshing or modernizing?
I think that there's a reason why they are fundamentals, because they are the same rules that our great grandmothers used to make sure that they had enough money to, get what they needed to put food on the table, to keep their kids clothed, are going to work now. The difference is that our money lives are more complex. So back then, the only option you had was to do like the envelope method for budgeting, because you paid for things in cash. I mean, yes, there were stores that allowed you to build up credit, but that was about it. And so, you'd have to keep the logbook by hand and things like that. Whereas now there are so many ways to pay. Like you've got you've got credit cards, you've got some, Venmo, you've got touchless apps that, you zap it. You can spend $300 while you're in the bath. Yes. Like it's kind of amazing the huge number of ways that we can screw up with money without even leaving the house or getting out of our pajamas, which is not.
You can also invest while you're in the bath.
That's right. That too. You can make good decisions too, which are granted our great grandmothers couldn't do. So I think the big difference between the fundamentals from 100 years ago and the fundamentals now is that we need to put different guardrails around our decisions, because there are more options available to us. And so more options can be a good thing, because it means that yes, you can invest from the bath, but that also means that you can I don't know, buy a Battlestar Galactica recreation ship that sits in your living room and does nothing from the bath, and this is not something you would do if you weren't just
in the modern age.
Yeah. So those are that's the thing that I think is really important about modern money management, is recognizing the having more options means you're going to need more guardrails and be more intentional about putting those guardrails up around your decisions.
I think an outdated thing that people told us for a long time is that it takes discipline. And while discipline, I think, can be a huge win for you, I don't think that's the win. I think behavioral economics, especially a lot of the studies we've seen the past 10 years, have taught us that it's much more about automation, about when you discover something, put that on autopilot, spend your time dealing with these big things. How do I advance my career? What am I doing with my family? What are my values? Where do I want to go? And leave these $5 decisions, to somebody else. We thought we'd get ahead clipping coupons, and now we know that's not accurate. But what we do know is that now I have apps like, and I'll just name one, like Honey as an example, or I've got Capital One shopping app where I don't even think about coupons, but man, I go to a site, all of a sudden my Honey app tells me that I can save money, and it's automated. So finding these automatic solutions to take care of the $1, $2, $3 problems so we can deal with the $100 problems, I think that's the most modern piece. And one more thing, something I don't think is modern that a lot of people do, and we've been asked a lot about with this book, is about crypto and about NFTs. And that seems to be very modern. There's always been a new thing. And crypto and NFTs are the latest new thing. And will they change knowing the fundamentals? No. You still have to know where they fit. You still have to know whether it makes sense for your portfolio or not. But for us, modern money is not so much about crypto NFTs as it is about automating as much as you possibly can.
Yes.
Joe and I are old enough to remember pets.com. So
I am too.
We've been here before.
I used to work in Wall Street back then. The .com boom. Yes.
Well, you remember that then. You remember how everything was different. Remember how the rules were all different? The rules were all different. We don't care how much money the companies make. Oh, it turned out that was important.
Yeah.
And then we got to 2007, 2008, as you know well too. And all of a sudden, it doesn't matter if anybody makes money. Just sell them 18 houses. Like, you can own as many houses as you want. You don't need
any cash in the bank.
Income verification, forget about it. We don't need any of that stuff. Turned out that wasn't right. So yeah, the old is still in a lot of ways the truth.
Yes. And automation is key again, because why should we rely on our willpower? Like that's just an uphill battle. That's so exhausting. Kudos to our grandmothers that they could do it. But like you said, Emily, life is way too complex. And there's bigger and better things that we could be doing with our time and energy and our money.
Well, and you even take that, you even take grandma's approach. There are some cool apps out there that do that now, that create those envelopes, but they do it for the modern day. There's a few of them. I know that the old envelope system is now envelopes with an M. There's also Cube Money that does it. There's a few different fintech companies that will create these envelopes, but does it today. And so take that idea that was great for grandma that we're way too busy for now, and automate that as well.
I do just want to tell you that when my husband and I, excuse me, when my husband and I were first married, to get on the same page, we decided to try the envelope system with cash. And I was telling my father, who was a financial planner, about that. And he goes like, "Oh, how revolutionary and modern." He's like, that's how your great grandmother did things. And he was telling me that she actually, every time she tried to have a checking account, she overdrew it because she just couldn't get her head to wrap around it. She needed the envelopes.
Funny. That is funny. Yeah. I had my envelope system when we were getting years ago, we were trying to get out of debt. And that's the only way I could get myself to just do this thing, get in the envelope system. And I did it, but I'm done with it. I'm done with that. So speaking about, you've been and like I said, in the field so long, I wonder if you had to choose one thing that you see people are just not doing enough of. Hopefully it's not the envelope system. Maybe it is, but that would really move the needle when it comes to building wealth. What would you say that is?
We actually start the book here. I believe that, I was a financial planner for 16 years. And one thing that I would see people step over is I will do Y as soon as I'm done with X. In other words, I look at all of the things that I have one at a time, where really I think we need to look at them all together and see how they bump up against each other. So we actually begin the book with this idea that writing down your goals isn't bad. It's directionally good, but it's far more valuable to do something that I call timelining your goals. And what that means is take an empty sheet of paper, draw yourself and anybody you're planning with as stick figures on one side, and then draw a line which represents the rest of your life, and put down your goals as if they're bags of money. So I have twins. At one point, I wanted to help them get through college. I had a financial independence date that I wanted. Maybe we wanted, not for us, but some people want like a second home, or what are some of the financial goals you have, and put them all out together. And then when you do that, you're able to ask yourself some really good questions.
Yes.
Number one is, how much do each of these things cost? So if I draw a line back to today, what does my budget have to look like today to make all of these work? And what we find out very quickly for most of us is, without the help of compounding interest, we can't get them all. So I can't wait, because we know compounding interest is such a powerful force. I can't wait 5 years to get out of debt before I start investing. I'm going to have to start putting money toward retirement sooner than that, or maybe toward kids' college sooner than that, which brings up the second thing. What interest rate do I need to make this goal a reality? We have these ridiculous risk assessment quizzes when we go work for somebody. And the question isn't, how much risk do I feel I should take? It's, what type of risk do I need to take? That's the first thing I need to know. And then once I know whether I need to take risk or not, then I ask myself, am I comfortable with that? And do I need to change the goal, or do I need to do something different with the budget? Maybe I need to find a way to make more money or save more money. So I love the texture and all the values-based conversations we get into when we put all of these out on a timeline. Is this goal more important than that one? If I can't get both of them, which one do I focus on? If I can get them all, am I thinking too small? Am I not thinking enough about my legacy? I love the idea of timelining your goals. The last thing I like that I'll say is that we've interviewed quite a few neuroscientists talking about how the brain works. And we live in a visual world. And the second we put it out, instead of just having them in writing, we have them out visually against each other. Our subconscious brain also then begins working on these problems too.
Wow.
And you'll find the same way that I do when I have my best ideas in the shower, right? Like, why now? All of a sudden your brain will present to you some great ideas about solving some of these conflicts between your goals because you put it out visually.
Yes, I love that idea. In fact, I teach a program for women called God Wants You to Be Rich. And just this week, about half an hour ago, I was sitting with my students. And before we can get to goals, I said, we got to talk about your values. Because once we've already gotten clear on where you're standing, right? They know their financial picture. But now if we want to design a plan, we got to make sure that plan aligns with the life that you actually want to live. And the numbers might be telling you that you're not living that life. So we actually went through a similar exercise just this morning.
I think you nailed it right there. The reason that so many people who make over $250,000 a year are crying about their money is not that they don't have enough. It's that their spending does not match their values.
Exactly.
And they know deep down they're wasting money, they're wasting resources, and they're wasting time.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, and that gets to something that I have over a lifetime, I have come to realize the importance of intention in any decision you make. And that's true of everything, but particularly with money. It's very easy to spend money without intention, to just kind of let it flow through your hands, because you've got an ATM fee here and an overdraft fee there, and so like that money is gone without any intention behind it. It's just gone. And so once you start thinking about like, I want to live my life with intention, and I want to spend my money with intention, so that it is supporting my values and doing the things that are most important to me. If it's supporting the community, making sure that my family is well taken care of, if that is giving to charity, if that is whatever it is that's continuing education, however that value is best expressed in you, being intentional about the way that you shape your finances and shape your life can lead to so much more satisfaction.
100%.
Can we share a story about this from the book?
Yes.
Emily, by the way, has a fantastic story about how she thought she was spending money one way, but it turned out that she wasn't really spending money according to her values. And she learned this horrible lesson from that. If you don't mind.
Let's hear it.
Oh, this is so embarrassing.
Oh, it's painful.
So back in my early 20s, I was dating this guy who was not good enough for me. He was a total jabroni. And he and I ended up breaking up, and I cried. And just a few weeks later, my grandmother passed away. And I was very close to my grandmother. She was just a wonderful, lovely woman. She was the family matriarch, just a lovely person. And also quite a forceful personality in a lot of ways. And so I had this idea that I wanted to remind myself to save my tears for things that mattered, that I should not spend time like moping over jabronis who break up with me, who are not worth my time, and save my tears for things that matter, like my grandmother. And so I decided, and I know this is not halachic, I decided to get a tattoo of a teardrop on my right shoulder.
This is so funny. Okay.
Which, by the way, my grandmother would have been horrified by.
I can only imagine.
What a great way to honor grandma, by doing something that she would have hated.
Something she would hate.
Post-Holocaust generation. No. This is just not the way to go.
No.
So I ended up going to a tattoo parlor, and I spent $150, which blew a huge hole in my early 20-something budget, because I think I was 22 or 23. So I was going to have to eat tuna fish and crackers and ramen for a month, because I took the money from my grocery budget and got a very stylized looking teardrop on my shoulder. Now I've always been a very like decisive person. Like I make a decision, I go with it. I'm happy with the decision. 10 minutes after walking out of there, I was just like, what did I just do?
Oh, but it gets better.
It by which he means it gets worse. So a few months later, I'm watching a movie, and I find out that teardrop tattoos have a very specific meaning among gang members, which is that it means that you killed someone. So my teardrop tattoo seemed to say that I offed my grandma.
Oh my goodness.
She literally killed her with the tattoo.
I whacked grandma. No, here's the thing about Ruthie is she also had a delightful sense of humor. So she would have laughed with me about this. At the same time, she would have been like, I'm not happy. But this is pretty funny.
Oh my gosh, what a story.
And so what I have come to realize, and so like it took me a long time to really, because I was ashamed of having made this decision and having gone through all of this. And I came to realize that what I thought I was doing was honoring my grandmother and honoring how I felt about her. And that there was a very specific thing that I was doing. I was kind of depriving myself because there was that $150 that I paid for the tattoo meant that I couldn't eat my normal, produce and stuff for a month. And so that like deprivation was something that felt good to me. Wow. As a way of showing my love, and that I had learned that, it's important to honor, the people that you love, honor your elders. And that was what I was trying to do. And if I had been able to, if I had a little more self-knowledge as a, 22, 23-year-old, and I think I needed to go through this to have the self-knowledge. I would have recognized, what there are other ways that could have honored Grandma Ruthie in a way that she would have appreciated a little better, and could have helped me recognize that, I loved her. I missed her dearly, and that I didn't necessarily have to, go through something that was both financially and physically painful to prove it.
Oh my gosh, this is too funny. Yes, 100%, 100%. Now, Emily, I think you mentioned your father is a financial advisor. Joe, you worked as a financial advisor for many years. This is often something that comes up for people. We've come along far, but there's still a lot of like, I guess, confusion and around what is a financial advisor and who should hire one, right? There's these myths around like that's only for the wealthy people, and it's one day I'll get there, kind of like and similar to I'll invest when I have money type of thing, right? Maybe you guys can help listeners debunk a little bit that myth or any others around hiring a financial professional, and also tell us what are the things to look out for, because this is so important. What are the clues to finding the right professional?
So I'll go ahead and start. It's because I grew up in the financial planning industry. I tend to have a pretty rosy view of it, which when you run into people from like the financial independence, retire early movements, they're very much like, oh no, you can do it yourself, DIY.
Yeah, DIY it.
Yeah. And so for me, I feel like finding the right financial professional is a little like when your kids are little and you're trying to find the right care person for your child. Like you're still the parent, you're still the person who does all of the important stuff, but someone who can help out with the things that you're not available to do, or to give you room to do other things. And similarly, just as you want to find the exact right daycare or nanny or babysitter for your children, and you're going to be very diligent about finding someone who is going to take care of your children. You want to find a financial advisor who has using the same kind of due diligence that you do looking for a nanny. And that's something that I think because people feel intimidated by the process, they're often like, oh, I got a name from a friend and I just went with them, because like they don't know how to ask questions. They're afraid they're afraid of feeling like they don't know what's going on. They're afraid of being intimidated and all of those things. And so that's one of the things that I think is really helpful, is to kind of recognize that this is a process where you're interviewing people to take care of something that is dear to you. And so you can take your time, you can interview lots of people, you can ask them lots of questions. And so that's one aspect of it. And then the other is to recognize what their role is going to be, which is, I like to say, it's like you are in the driver's seat and your financial advisor is sitting shotgun and has the map. And so like you're capable of reading the map yourself, but they may know parts of the map that you're not familiar with. There may be stuff that you just don't know. You don't know that route. I'm like, oh, and that's actually a really good route for you. And they can direct you, but it's ultimately your decision. You're the one behind the wheel. And so thinking of it, those two aspects of finding a financial planner can really be helpful in letting people understand what the role will be and how much power they have in finding the right one.
Yes. And I think this is a very important message for everybody, and specifically for women, because there is a tendency to just have somebody will take care of it. Right.
Mm-hmm,
I don't want to look at it. They know what they're doing. And we're saying, no, it's still your money.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's going to take care of it better than you are.
Mm-hmm.
You're still. So, Joe, what's your take on this?
Well, I love that. I love that analogy that it's still your money, because one of my favorite examples of somebody being in control of their financial situation would be somebody who's the CEO of a company. And I love, if we use Mary Barra at General Motors, I think is a great example of a woman who has kept this company. General Motors isn't the end all be all of companies, but she's kept them relevant. She's turned the ship. She's right in the conversation whenever you talk about anything going on in automotive. And there's certainly some exciting things happening with GM. But let's be clear, Mary doesn't show up at work twice a year and go, hey, car people, take care of this stuff. And because, she's got all these VPs that handle all the pieces of a car. I'll show up twice a year and you just tell me how it goes. No, she goes to all the meetings. She knows everything about a car. And I think if you have advisors that take it away from you, you need to fire them. Those are not who you want. You need an advisor who makes you smarter. And certainly you should listen to podcasts like yours. You should read, you should be up on all the latest stuff. And the advisor is looking for your blind spot, which is where I think we're constantly having this conversation, which is not the right question to ask. When you hear people say that you shouldn't have advisors, they couple that with, you're smart enough to do this by yourself. Of course you are. Mm-hmm. Yes, you are smart. I'm smart enough to do it by myself. I have an advisor. My advisors, by the way, and I have advisors in different areas of my life.
Right.
And my advisors are people that disagree with me. They look at the world differently than I do. If I have a growth mindset, I truly want to make sure that I'm running as fast as possible toward whatever my goals are. I want people to tell me where I'm messing up. Mm-hmm. And it's not about being smart enough. A financial advisor is somebody who, does this all day, every day, and can definitely help me do it better, but they shouldn't take it from you. And I'll give you two things, because when I was a financial planner for a long time, I saw a lot of bad financial planners. So let me give you two. Number one, two pieces to kind of identify a bad planner. First one is very basic. If the advisor leads with product and not process, you got to run, because there is no magic bullet. There is no magical thing that solves everything. And yet you have these people out there, you see them on TikTok videos all the time telling you about, this is fantastic for everybody, we should do it. There's no such thing. So they should start off with asking you questions about you. And certainly then they should have some credentials. They should be a certified financial planner. They should be what's called a fiduciary, which means that they have to work in your best interest, but they also should have a connection with you. And I'll tell you the second thing here, which is, if they don't have a connection with their staff, they will not have a connection with you. I used to go into a lot of different financial planning offices, and I'll tell you, every office I went into where the receptionist was bitter or mean or just didn't have the time of day for me, that came right from the boss. Mm-hmm. That came from her or him. And the financial advisor had the same mentality. Usually in an office where the advisor's wonderful, the support people are also wonderful, because it all comes from that top person. So I'd use that as a quick clue. Third thing is, if you end up walking into their office, I don't want them to have Jim Cramer on yelling at the TV. I don't want CNBC. I want the Travel Channel, right? Their job is to settle me down and think long-term, not to think about, there's tons of stuff we got to forget all that. Yeah.
I love that.
I have one more analogy, particularly that's helpful for women, I think, in that your financial advisor can be kind of like your doula when you're having a baby, because your financial advisor cannot have the baby for you.
Yes.
That's good. I like
and
that.
if they're trying to have the baby for you, there's a problem.
That's a problem.
But they are there to help smooth the ups and downs that have you really worried. They're there to like be a liaison between you and the like the professional team. So like the liaison with you and like the stock market and all of that, and to help you remember what's important to you when tempers are running high, when you're scared, when you're feeling greedy, whatever it is. Just as your doula is there to help you calm down and remember that you wanted a non-medicated birth.
Yes.
You're like, no, I really want an epidural now.
Change my mind. No, well, and can we circle back for a second on what Emily said at the beginning? Because I don't want people to lose this. Great advisors to some degree are still salespeople. Even if they will tell you, when I was an advisor, I would tell you if I didn't think it was a fit, but if I thought it was a fit, my job is to sell you on the fact that it's a fit. Right. So we're all good at this presentation about getting you to come on board. That's why no matter how good a fit the first one is, I think it's essential. You got to talk to 3, 4, 5 different people, because that's only when you're going to start seeing the differences between them. And especially if you've never met with somebody before. I mean, I remember people that I worked with great. I knew they were going to be a fit, but I still felt horrible when I knew the only person they met with was me. You really should meet with a few people before you make that decision.
Yes. I love that. I love that. Thank you so much. So we are a bunch of money nerds in the room. I'm only a money nerd, honestly, because I wasn't a money nerd when I should have, and I made my share of financial mistakes. What are some of the financial mistakes or the hard knocks that you've received along the day? Because I imagine that even savvy money people like yourselves, you have something hiding in the closet. So share with us.
Is it time for mine then, Emily?
Yeah, I think it's time for your embarrassing story.
Yeah. Yeah. So mine was, I was a financial disaster. In fact, even when I became a financial planner, I was a financial disaster giving other people advice when I wasn't taking any of my own advice. I was horrible. But that all started in college. In our family, we didn't talk about money. Whenever there were money conversations going on, my parents would have my brother, sister, and I leave the room. You did not talk about money at our house. And so I got to college, and I was at the Citadel, the military college of South Carolina. At the time that I was there, because I'm an old guy, it was all men. And I walk into Mark Clark Hall, the student union, and there was something going on then that credit card companies don't have anymore. There was a table for the American Express card. Now they found ways.
And a bunch of other cards in my day.
They have found ways around that, but they're not allowed to have the table anymore. So if you're younger and you didn't have that, well, lucky you, but they still will find a way to get to you. But anyway, there was a long line of people waiting to get into debt. Right. And I don't remember if it was for a stadium blanket or a Frisbee or something, but I stood in that line. I signed up for a card when it said, how much money do you make? I'm in a military college. I can't have a job. There's no job I can have. There's nothing I can do. Zero. I have no income, no nothing. Well, of course, 3 weeks later, guess what happens? This beautiful green credit card comes. I've never been allowed to make the small mistakes as a kid that some people make. I've never held on to more than maybe $20 at a time. And now I have a credit card, which, the American Express card, you got to pay it off every month. I didn't know that. And then the second thing is there's really no limit. So the first time we get leave, we go to North Charleston, where there's this mall, and there's 6 of us, and we go to this high-end restaurant that you may have heard of. I don't know if you're familiar with this one. It was called Ruby Tuesday.
No. Okay.
This very high-end place. They had a salad bar and everything. And so the bill comes, and there's 6 of us at the table. And of course, me wanting to be everybody's buddy, I raised my card in the air and I said, I got this. This is all on me. So I pick up everybody's lunch. Then I walk down to the other end of the mall, and I go to, of course, the most expensive store, because I can't go to the second most expensive. I go to Nordstrom, and there is this beautiful, beautiful sweater. And this is 1986. So it was Duran Duran beautiful. Like, this was just the paisley design. And I have it in the other room. I should have brought it so I could show you. Yeah. Because I got to remember what an idiot I was.
I love that you still have it.
Yeah, just to remember. But
does it still fit?
If you, that's a whole different.
That's the question.
No, I would have burned it.
That's a whole different thing. But of course I bought that once I'm in Charleston, South Carolina. Like it's cold 2 days there. And then the second thing is I'm in a military college. I got to wear a uniform. What am I going to do with a sweater? But I bought it. So of course I'm feeling good because I've got all these new friends that I bought them lunch. I got this cool clothing I can't wear. Then about a month later, this weird thing happens. I walk to the mail and there's a letter for me. It's from American Express. How cool is this? I open it up and of course I owe them a bunch of cash
that you didn't have.
Well, and I'd never thought of. I'm like, wait a minute. Oh, there's a second piece to this. I thought I'd just have a good time. So I did what any sane person would do. I called my mom and I said, Mom, we have a problem. And Mom said, no, you have a problem. And the bad news is then 2 months later, my credit was destroyed. The card was gone. And I spent the next summer coming up with probably $400 to pay off a collection agency. And that was a lesson, though, that really started things on this bad trail of debt as I tried to learn my own way, which finally one day I woke up. This, by the way, I got married. I had young twins. I'm a financial planner. I'm in an old rusted out minivan and I ran out of gas on my way home from a meeting. And I realized that I borrowed money from every line of credit I had. I borrowed money from all my relatives. Nobody was going to give me any more money. And I had no cash to get home. And I go to the seats of this old Aerostar van and I'm looking for money and I found 85 cents. And I walk, this is a real old guy story. I walk a mile to this marathon station, this mobile station, where the dude doesn't want to loan me the plastic gas tank because he's afraid I'm going to steal it.
Oh my gosh.
He thinks I'm going to take it. So finally he lets me have it. I walk back to my car and I remember as I'm putting gas in this car, this is when I cried about money, by the way, because I realized that things had to get better, but better than that, I had to quit looking for short-term fixes because initially when I was finding my way out, I would always try to find a short-term fix and I had to build a foundation. So I had to put money in a bank account, even though I had debt. I had to stop using credit then. I use credit now, but now I understand how dangerous it can be. I surrounded myself with much smarter people that were teachers, even though I was teaching people, which would horrify people, that there were people like me doing that. I surrounded myself with smart people. And then it was amazing how quickly I was able to turn the boat around. Within 5 years, I went from very bad financial instability and not knowing what side was up to very much having a solid net worth that was going north in a hurry. And it wasn't quick fixes. It was the tried and true foundation.
Yeah, we go full circle to that first initial question. I love that. Now, you mentioned, Joe, that you were married at this point, and so often making these changes, evidently, if we're in a committed relationship, it takes two to tango, right? And this is where a lot of people bump into trouble because not only do we carry our baggage with money and we haven't learned how to talk about money and understand what our own mindset about money and why we behave a certain way, then we bring somebody else into this and we don't even know how to talk to them and let alone understand them, right? So how were you and your wife able to bridge this? Because that's also a big piece that you didn't mention, so that could come to fruition within that short amount of time. I think this is an important component, the marriage part.
This is huge. And actually, we talk about this as well in our section on budgeting, because I believe that budgeting is less about having the right spreadsheet than if you're budgeting with somebody else to having the right conversations.
Yes.
And Cheryl and I, with young kids, we had different financial priorities. And she, in a lot of families that I worked with, one person knew where every dime was, and the other person was in what I called fantasy land. Mm-hmm. And I was so busy working with other people's money. I was the one in fantasy land. I was the money geek, and I was totally in fantasy land about my money. And I'll give you an example. Cheryl and I would both come home one day with important stuff for the family. I would come home and she has bags of clothes, school clothes for the kids. and I had the latest video game, both important for the family, hugely important. And we'd have these fights, right? About them. And then we realized that for us, while I like apps as much as the next person, we needed to have a conversation that had no blaming, not having one person drag the other one to the table, that was fun. So Cheryl and I have a weekly meeting. It's 20 minutes long. We've been doing it now forever and we love it. It's a weekly meeting. It's 20 minutes long. We set a timer at 20 minutes. It can't go longer. It's either involves pancakes or wine, depending on what time of day it is. You can choose. If it's middle of the day, maybe do them both. I don't care. Like you do.
What pancake? What wine do you pair with pancakes? So is it a red or a white?
That's right. It had to be a sweet white, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It would kind of have to be, I think. But yeah, but at the meeting is very simple. We look through our transactions from the week before, and we just talk through what we spent money on the week before. And then we look at the next week's expenses together and talk about what priorities we have that are coming up. And I'll tell you, we usually stop there. But what happens that's amazing is every once in a while we'll miss that meeting. And when we miss it, we don't have other conversations during the week and bad things happen. If we have that meeting that's 20 minutes long, we end up having these organic money conversations all week long. And then we get into the big stuff later, like what are we thinking about for retirement, or, the big, huge, deeper financial conversations, those come much more readily when we have that 20-minute meeting. So yeah, the 20-minute meeting solved the crisis that we were having in my relationship.
Yeah, I experienced the same thing. We have our weekly money dates, 30 minutes, and it's changed everything.
Yeah,
really. It makes a huge difference, because a lot of people feel like, they always tell me like, oh, but what if an emergency comes up during the week between, and I say, when you're having these weekly dates or whatever you want to call them, you're going to find that less things end up being an emergency. It's just like we're all putting out fires, but we're putting out fires because we're not in touch with our cash flow. We're not in touch as a couple with how things are moving. But if we're meeting every week and we know what's coming up and what we did and what's coming up, then we are things might come up that feel like an emergency, but it's less and less.
Well, and I'm also thinking that when they do come up, they don't feel like an emergency because you're talking to each other.
Exactly. Emily, are you a fan of the money date?
So my husband and I don't exactly have kind of a regular weekly money date. We aim for once a month. And some of that comes from the fact that I am like a dyed-in-the-wool money nerd. I was as a small child. Like there are stories of me like taking everything out of my piggy bank, counting all the money and putting it back in, and then just kind of rubbing my hands. So that was me. And I've always been that way. I've also always been someone who likes tracking things, not just money, but I just like to track things. So I have always been pretty on top of my finances, even when I was making very little money. So my husband is not a tracker, but he's very frugal. And so in a lot of ways, we meshed really well. Where things were difficult was where we had different values. So I can remember there was I was going to a cousin's wedding and I had bought new shoes for it, and they weren't super expensive, but they were like $80 shoes that I was only going to wear once. And my husband was just like, why?
Right.
Why? So what I found that was really helpful to get us both on the same page on those value discussions and make sure that we are looking forward and, spending with intention, it was by accident. Actually, we were in the car on a road trip. I don't remember where we were driving, but we had several hours ahead of us. And so we started top 10 vacation destinations, go. And so, back and forth, we're each saying our top 10. And his number one was Le Mans in France, which is where there's a 24-hour automotive race, because he's an automotive engineer. He's very much a grease monkey engine geek. And I was just like, I can get down with going to France. I am okay with that plan. And so we were just talking about it and having a great time on our road trip. But when we got home about a week later, I said, why don't we start putting $75 or $100 a month away in a savings account to go to France? And he's like, okay. And so we started doing that. And that was something that, allowed us to like build up some money to do something that we both really wanted to do.
Yeah.
Then by doing that and then automating it, that kind of showed him like the power of a lot of the stuff that I'd been telling him about, that he was just like, I don't know if that'll work. And that like, allowed us to really start automating all kinds of things. So like, for instance, we set aside money every month to go towards our kids' summer camp, because, it's really important to us that they go to Jewish day camp. And then this year, my 11-year-old for the first time is going to go to sleepaway camp. And that's an expense that can be really difficult.
I know.
And
you have to plan for it, right? Like anything that's important to you.
Yes. And so knowing that it's important to us, and that we can not only do we plan for it and we've got the money for it, but we by planning for it, we can pay for it all at once and get a little bit of a discount. And so doing things like that, we set $350 aside every month to go towards a new car. So it's like kind of like we pay ourselves a car loan. And so that money is there for if we need to buy a new car. We also use it for if there's any major work that needs to be done on either of our cars. And that all started because we had that conversation in the car. And so that's one of the things that I think is really can be very helpful, particularly in those relationships where you get one money geek and one person who just doesn't really pay much attention, is to like start with the fun stuff.
Yeah, start with the dream.
Yeah, start with the big dreams. Don't start with the like, how are we going to deprive ourselves?
Yeah.
Well, and cajoling does not work.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Definitely. I'm curious about giving, because, normative personal finance, usually we know there's 4 ways we can allocate our money. We pay ourselves first, we save, we invest, we spend, and then we give, right, with whatever's left over. But, we often talk in the show that there's a Jewish financial paradigm, as I like to call it, where there is a concept of giving first, giving a minimum of 10% of your after-tax income to charity. And to some people, that's really, really hard, because actually 10% is a pretty hefty amount.
Sure.
And for some others, they see the benefits, not just from a spiritual feel-good perspective, and I feel more abundant, but they actually see that it doesn't take away from their money. People see that it actually benefits them financially. What have you guys seen in terms of any benefits of giving, not in a random way, but rather, like I said, in a more systematic and disciplined way?
I have said for a long time, this will be new to Emily. I've said for a long time, this is probably my only book. Like, this is the book, but I have an idea for my next book.
Okay, let's hash it out. Let's talk about it.
Yes, and it is this idea that it's from gratitude to wealth.
Yes,
because I find that the more that I give, the wealthier, not just my pocketbook is, or my investments are, the wealthier my life is. Mm-hmm. So I feel like when we don't start with a give first mentality, with a service mentality, we really deprive ourselves of a lot of that.
100%.
So I think, well, I'm with you that for some people, saving 10% of what you have is incredibly difficult. I think if you build that in, and you also realize that being a giver can also help you receive a lot more, is amazing. But I feel very lucky. We interviewed on Stacking Benjamins Daniel Lamar, who is the head of Cirque du Soleil for a number of years. And he realized that early on in his career, that he even phrased it. He goes, listen, don't even think of yourself as a giver. He goes, I feel bad for takers in the universe because I never give them anything. Yeah. He goes, but when somebody gives and gives and gives, he owes his career, by the way, with Cirque du Soleil, because when the circus was struggling, he was in a different job, and he helped out the founder of Cirque du Soleil. At that time, the circus wasn't very big. Later on, when the circus was huge, he wanted to bring on Daniel Lamar, even though they already had contracts in place and other people involved. And he said that, even if you're a taker, realize that giving first is pretty good. Like if you want to take more, which is not the way to look at it at all. But I seriously think that the more gratitude I have, the more that I give, the easier life just seems to be.
Yes.
So I really loved Marie Kondo, the life-changing magic of tidying up. There's a lot in there that really resonated with me. And one of them was how she anthropomorphized your things. So like when she says, like, ask your, thank your sweater that you're giving away.
Thank your
for its
socks.
service.
Yes.
Thank your stuff. And the reason I liked it was because it took me out of the equation. So if there's a sweater that I haven't fit into since before my kids were born, and I hold on to it because I love it, that is centering me. And so if I recognize the sweater wants to be worn, it's sad that it's sitting in my closet and not being worn. And so I recognize, oh, I can gift it elsewhere. And so I use that to think about my money as well. What does my money want? And that my money will tell me, like, it wants to grow for me. And it really wants to help others. Like it doesn't want to be frittered away on things I don't need. It doesn't want to be, like saved for no reason, just to be hoarded. It wants to make me proud. And it can make me proud in two very distinct ways. One is by helping the community, by giving back, by ensuring that people feel, have what they need and feel loved and comforted and welcome, and all of the things that I feel like is just a big part of what I love about being Jewish, just that sense of welcoming. And then, and that is, it helps remind me that I'm not in the center of this equation. And so it's something that I recommend for folks who have some of the limiting beliefs that, like, if I give money away, I'm not going to have enough. If you start thinking like, what does my money want? And asking your money, where do you want to go? Your money is going to tell you that, it wants you to have faith in it, that it will come back to you, even if you are giving it away.
Yeah. And we go back to that I'm not an independent entity here, and I've been put here for a reason, right? Whatever you believe, right? But there's a reason that God or the universe has allowed you to be here today with all your talents and everything that you bring to the table. And you're getting this resource so that you can utilize it, not only to serve your needs, that's very important, take care of yourself, but also to be of service to others. It's such an important paradigm shift. Thank you so much. Okay, guys, let's wrap it up with what I like to call Jewish money matters, fill in the blanks. So this is a part of the show. I'll give you an open-ended statement and we'll finish it with the first thing that comes to mind. All right?
Okay.
Deal.
Okay. And you guys could take it wherever, whoever wants to go first. Okay. When I give tzedakah or charity, I'd like to give to, what are we a fan of?
I love things for helping refugees. I love giving locally for food. Food insecurity here in Milwaukee, just because we can see what's going on. And I love giving for things that help the environment. Those tend to be my focuses.
What about you, Joe?
I love to give in my local community. I'm on the board of a group called Partnership for the Pathway that builds walking trails and safe routes to school for kids. Wow. When I first moved here to Texarkana 12 years ago, we didn't have any sidewalks in a lot of the place around schools. It was crazy. And I found a group that was working to build those. And today we have a bunch of them. So I give time and money there. That's my biggest passion.
Nice. I'd love to make more money because
I see it as a kind of positive energy. So if more money is flowing in towards me, that means I have more energy that I can flow out to things that I want. And so some of that is like literally I'll be able to give more, but it also means that I'll be able to have more like actual energy because I can offload some things, because I can afford to, hire someone to help clean the house, that sort of thing.
Yes. And we often forget that, right? The money allows us to have more impact. So I can hire somebody. That means I'm helping her feed her family and put her kids through school. I mean, it just needs to flow in that way. It's amazing. What about you, Joe? I'd love to make more money because.
No, that's exactly where I was headed because, and I'm in a coaching group, and another guy in our group said his number one focus right now is any decision that's $25 or less. He wants to offload it to somebody else. And I feel like that's where I would have the most impact, dealing with those bigger decisions, bigger problems. And also often I don't get to them because I'm dealing with some of these small things. So if I can use it to delegate more stuff to more people, that's fantastic.
Yes. Something I wish I'd learned about money growing up is.
I've got mine because I wish, that sweater wasn't really worth it.
I wish I'd had more open conversations. I learned a lot growing up, just kind of listening to my dad talk about money. And so I just kind of picked things up, but I definitely had kind of a child's understanding of things for a lot of it and had to revisit. So I wish that money had been talked about more than talked at me.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, going to Joe's meetings, at least in our household, like our children know that it's something that we do regularly. Like we actually sit and talk about our money and we make decisions. Oh, whenever they want something that, requires some thinking, we'll get to it because your father and I have to discuss it. You know what I mean? Like it's, and it's important for them to see, unlike what maybe you saw at home, Joe, and which I saw too, where it was like completely taboo and it wasn't talked about. So tell us something I wish I'd learned about money growing up. Oh, you told us the sweater.
I did. Yes. But I will say this to your point, my kids had a completely different experience. We invited our kids often to those 20-minute meetings. I also, because, dad and mom can tell kids things and they roll their eyes.
Yes.
I was able to introduce them to people that were younger and were in our space that they read. I introduced them to Aaron Lowry at Broke Millennial.
Oh,
and
cool. Yeah.
Introduced them to Scott Trench with Bigger Pockets, who's got a great book called Set for Life. And now they're 26. My daughter doesn't make a lot of money, but she's incredibly frugal and she has money saved and no debt. My son works for Microsoft as an engineer now and is at 26 has 11 rental houses.
Wow.
And it's awesome. It's all him. It's not dad. Like I did not pitch in at all, except to give him the knowledge of where to look.
That's awesome. Guys, money, spiritual or physical?
So both. Spiritual. Oh.
Do you want to elaborate, Joe?
Well, I just think it's incredibly spiritual because I think it's much more about your values and your life and without adding the spiritualness to money, it's nothing. It's a piece of paper. Yeah. We bring value to it. So how we bring value, could be a very spiritual thing or an ugly thing. So I'm going to go spiritual because I'm an optimist.
Love that. Emily, what about you?
Both. And that's, so I definitely agree. Like money doesn't actually exist. It's a delusion we all share. But because you can't eat it, you can't build a house out of it, you can't wear it unless, I don't know, you're Lady Gaga or something. And you can't even spend it in a place where it's not accepted as legal tender. It's just this idea we all share, and it has value because we all assign it value. But even though it is like this amorphous thing, it does have physical effects, and very much on on both ends, like on the income spectrum where you don't have much. Money is a physical thing because getting more improves your physical life.
Right.
And then even on the other end, like where you have quite a bit of money, it is a physical thing because it allows you to have better healthcare, better access to, sleep, to like the things that are like the very basics of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So while it is a spiritual thing, because we're humans and we're imperfect, we have made it physical, and it has these physical manifestations that can be very negative, unfortunately. And it's our job to work to make it more spiritual so that everyone has what they need to live their life of purpose.
I know it's your show, Yael, but I'm so curious where you come down on that.
I think both. Just like us humans, we are both spiritual and physical, and we can't separate one from the other. So I think it's the same. Yeah, definitely both. Again, it's not a physical thing, because everything has an inherent spirituality. And like you said, Joe, like that's how we use it. That's how we elevate it. Like there's so much spirituality, but again, we have to feed people, right? So it does so much good in the physical world. So it's both. We can't we are both. Like physicality is spirituality. It just depends on how you use it.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Something I splurge on unapologetically is not ugly sweaters, please.
Office supplies.
Are you serious?
Oh my God.
She totally does.
I love, like, I have, I live by the code that she who dies with the most blank notebooks wins.
What would Marie Kondo say about this?
I know it's, one of the things that I've tried to do is get less precious about using my nice office supplies. So like I used to, like, I'd buy this beautiful notebook and I'd never use it because it's too nice to use. And now it's just like, that's ridiculous. I love it. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to use it.
What would your notebook want, Emily? What would the notebook want?
Exactly. The notebook wants to be written and drawn in.
Yes.
Exactly.
So, but that's, it's a joke in our house that, like, I'm not allowed to go to Staples by myself.
It's become a joke with a writing partner too.
Yeah, that too.
Yes.
Joe, what about you?
Oh, anybody who knows me well knows I love getting groups of people together and playing board games. Like, fun. Video games are fine, but sitting around a table and having a shared experience of board games. So I have a lot of board games.
Wow, how fun. All right. Spender or saver? Who wants to go first?
I'm a saver.
And
we could tell, Emily.
Yeah, guess which one I am. I am totally a spender. Yes. And I've set things up so that I just don't, like, I don't have money in my wallet. I make sure that money goes to the right place first and then I spend it. But yeah, I'm definitely a spender.
Yeah, same here. I've had to train myself and automate everything. Out of sight, out of mind. It's doing what it needs to do, what I want it to do, so that I don't have to rely on willpower. All right. Today, I'm most grateful for
my family. I have, so my husband is an automotive engineer, so we are very different, and very much kind of an opposites attract. He used to say that he was in charge of numbers and things, and I'm in charge of words and stuff. But we complement each other in such a lovely way, and he gets me. And together we have two beautiful boys, an 11-year-old and an 8-year-old, who are hilarious and just so sweet and just lovely to be with. And I am grateful every day for all of them.
Joe, today I'm most grateful for.
Yeah, I won't try to out family Emily, because that's going to be, what I'm very grateful for is that, after being a financial planner, this is kind of my second career being in financial media. And I'm grateful that I'm surrounded by smart people who are all trying to generally go in the same direction. And if I'm laughing all day, like, my life is going the way it should be going. And if I'm not laughing, things aren't going great. So to have a job, quote job, where I laugh for a living is just, pinch me. That's so amazing.
Yeah. This last one might feel like a trick question. It's not, guys. Take it wherever you want to take it. Finally, I am Emily Guy Birken, and I believe Jewish money matters because
Hashem wants us to be our best selves. And money is one of the tools that we can use to not only be our best selves, but help others be their best selves.
Indeed. Beautiful. Joe, how about you?
I think Jewish money matters because leading with your values matters. I think it's the equation of solving the money problem. Don't begin with what's hot or what's now. Think about what you value. And yeah.
Yes. And everything else falls into place if we lead with that. Beautiful. Joel and Emily, you guys are so fun. I'm so excited for the new book. I think this is going to be, I know it, revolutionary. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Tell us where we can find you. You're both super prolific. So I know there's a lot of places we can be in touch.
You can reach me at my website, emilyguybirken.com. There you can, there's links to all 5 of my books, the 4 previous before Joe and I worked together, and Stacked, Your Super Serious Guide to Modern Money Management. And then you can also find me on Twitter. My handle is at @EmilyGuyBirken. I love being on Twitter. I'm on there way too much. I love being a part of Twitter, or Jewish Twitter. There's a lot of wonderful stuff on there that is just so funny. So, and that's, so I love saying hello to people there, and I'm always just interested to see what people have to say on Twitter. And so, yeah, those are the best places to reach me.
And we are taking the show on the road, so you can come hang out with us beginning March 1st through the end of June. We're going to 41 cities, I think. StackyBenjamins.com/stacked is the book tour. But even if you're not going to buy our book, just come hang out with a bunch of like-minded people, and we'll introduce you to many people in your area that are of a like mindset. So we hope we get to meet a lot of people.
We'll laugh a lot. We're
Yes.
going to have fun. Yeah. This is not a book tour. This is going to be a fun book tour.
Yes, absolutely.
And then looking forward.
Yeah. And then reliably, you can find me every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at the Stacking Benjamin Show. We call it the greatest money show on earth because it's a circus. It is a circus. We have a lot of fun.
I know you do. The book is Stacked, Your Super Serious Guide to Modern Money Management, and you can find it anywhere. And stay tuned, guys, and go check out that book in the book tour. I'll be there in Houston. Thank you, Joe and Emily. This was such a pleasure.
Thank you.
Yael.